Today we are going to take up the novel The Vegetarian, which is a part of Korean literature. Now, what is actually Korean literature and how did it begin? Actually, Korean literature is mostly translated because translations of Korean literature are available in English. So Korean literature and translation came to be traced in 19th century, when through Japan, Western literary influences began to filter into Korean writers. There were two social movements which were responsible for the Korean literature to be known to the other part of the, you can say, world. The first movement was the New Education and the Korean language and literature movement, which had an important role to play. In 1894, the Gobo reforms was introduced, in which Western style of education and other printing technology was introduced, and therefore this was a tremendous boost to the writers, Korean writers, so that they could bring forth the literature which was written in Korean language, translated into English, which came to be known to the world then. Then at that particular time, even serialized novels in newspapers became fashionable. So in newspaper also, they used to send parts of the novels, and serially, some parts of those were published in the newspapers, and it was called serialized novel. That was also very fashionable at that time. They were known as Sijo and Kasa. Now, earlier these translations were limited only to Japan and China, and now it has become possible in English also. Like many Asian languages, the exact translation in word is not available. You see, when you translate something from Marathi into English or Hindi into English or English into the other language, you do not have the exact translation because there are differences in grammar and everything which is there, which limits you to have the expression. Their equivalence in language and culture does not remain the same when translation takes place. So this we have to bear in mind. Now, many landmark events took place at that time. Like in 1988, Seoul Olympics became a landmark when Korean society entered into consumerism. This changed the value system, ways of thinking, aesthetic sense of the whole generation. In 1990s, they saw a technological boom in Korea, and internet opened a new world to the young generation. And during this particular time, many prominent poets, fiction writers, they came on the scene and they wrote tremendous literature at that particular time. Another characteristics of Korean fiction which emerged was the women writers. Writers like Hwang Chyo, Yoon Han Kong, Kim In Suk, So Ha Jan, all these, they started articulating the feminine desire, and they wanted to challenge some of the customs and traditions which were there in the Korean society through their writings. And they also wanted to depict women's liberation, values, family ties, sex, everything through those writings. And a dramatic change came over with the writings of the women writers. Now, till the second half of the 20th century, women writers were only on the periphery. But new women fiction writers came and it brought about a change. Han Kang, who has written The Vegetarian, is a part of the new Korean wave, which was driven by the women, and her writing represents change, and it touches upon the modern day Korea and a victory of Korean translated literature. So with coming of Han Kang's literature, The Vegetarian, a new Korean literature has come into existence. So this is the background which we have to bear in mind when we study any literature. So in brief, I have narrated the Korean background of Korean literature. You know about the writer, how it has been translated, who has translated it, and then I will give you a brief summary of the novel the three parts which are there, and then some of the important, you can say important episodes which are there in the novel. Those I will take up so that you have a better understanding of the novel, The Vegetarian. Now, this Vegetarian is a South Korean three-part novel written by Han Kan. So the writer of this particular novel is Han Kan, and it was published in 2007. It is based upon a short story, The Fruit of My Woman. And the setting of Vegetarian is the modern day Seoul, and it narrates the story of Yeon Hae. Yeon Hae is the heroine of the novel, a part-time graphic artist and homemaker. She's a homemaker, but at the same time, she's a part-time graphic artist. And she takes up a decision in her life to stop eating meat after she has a very bloody and nightmarish dream about the cruelty that leads to the devastating consequences in a personal and familial life. See, the title Vegetarian is very catchy, but it is very symbolic also. And we will discuss about this title and what taboo it has in Korea in the end, when you understand what is this novel about, why there is so much of fuss about vegetarianism, and why the heroine Yeon Ha has to undergo a lot of trauma because she turns to be a vegetarian, or she becomes a vegetarian. Now, this was published, as I said,
receive call.
please stop your, mute your audio. Don't disturb. So this was published in 2007, and it was received as to be a very bizarre novel by the Korean audience. And the second part of this novel, Mongolian Mark, won the award of Yaesang Literary Prize, and it was translated into at least 13 languages, including English, French, and Chinese. Now, what is this book, The Vegetarian? The Vegetarian is Han Kan's second book to be translated into English. Now, who has translated this book? It was translated by a British translator, Dabir Smith, and was published in 2015 in the UK and February 2016 in US, after which it received international critical acclaim, and critics praised Han's writing style and Smith's translation. See, two writers are very, very important in this particular novel, The Vegetarian. First, the original writer, Han Kan, and the translator, Dabir Smith. So both are to be acclaimed as good writers, because whatever Han Kan wrote has been translated very well by Dabir Smith into English. Now, in May 2016, it won 2016 Man Booker International Prize. This was the prize the one. Now, the thing which is associated with it is that The Vegetarian became the first recipient of the award after its reconfiguration in 2015, prior to which it was awarded to an author's body of work rather than a single novel. See, earlier, author's body means more than 2-3 authors were awarded with this particular award. But for a single novel, this was the first award which went to the novel, The Vegetarian. It is considered to be considered as Korean translated literature's biggest win, since Kwang Song-shin's Please Look After Mom won the closing Man Asian Literary Prize in 2012. So prior to it winning, The Vegetarian had already sold 20,000 copies in 9 years since its publication, and it was included in the best books of 2016. So this is actually what is the, you can say, the appreciation that the novelist and the translator have got. Now, about the writing of this book. Han Kan got the idea of writing about vegetation or plants when she was a university student. And she came across a Korean writer, Yaesang. And she said that she had explored her lifelong themes of violence, humanity, and all these had a lot of impact on her mind. And when she wrote this Vegetarian, she had in her back of mind all these things, that how there was violence and how this violence was responsible for transformation of a human being. And this particular attempt was there seen into the writings of the Vegetarian. Now coming to this, the plot of the Vegetarian. Now the Vegetarian tells the story of Yon Hai. I said she's the heroine, a homemaker. Homemaker means she's a housewife, and who suddenly one day decides to stop eating meat. Why? What was the reason for stopping to eat meat? Because she had a nightmarish dream in which she saw blood, in which she saw animals slaughter, and she was disturbed by all these aspects. And then this made her change her mind that she will stop eating meat. And this led to many you can say, turbulence in her life. This led to many difficulties in her life, in her own family life, her married life, with the relations with her relatives. And because of this decision, she was distanced from her family and from the society. Now in India, being a vegetarian is acceptable. It is a way of our life because that is our tradition, that is our custom. So if somebody is a vegetarian, we do not distance that particular person from our family or from our society, or we do not consider it as an act which is not acceptable to the society. We don't consider it to be madness. We don't consider that somebody is doing this act, therefore it is a bizarre act, which is not acceptable. It is a taboo. But here, because the tradition of that country is different, where becoming vegetarian means only if you are a patient or if you cannot eat because of some physical problems or health problems, then it is acceptable. But a normal person like Yon Hai becomes vegetarian all of a sudden, is not accepted to her husband, neither her in-laws, nor her parents, nor the society. Therefore, she has to face a lot of mental trauma, stress, and she has to undergo a lot of difficulties also in her life. Now, in the first section, this particular novel is divided into 3 sections. The titles are The Vegetarian, The Mongolian Mark, and the third is The Flaming Trees. So we'll be going section wise. The first is The Vegetarian. Now, Mr. Chong, who is the husband of Yon Hai, he says that he has not done anything remarkable in his life, nor his wife has done anything. He gives a lot of explanation that how he met his wife. And he says that she does not have anything which attracts him or suits him. And he is a person who wants to live a very conventional sort of a life, doing nothing remarkable. He chose to marry her because she proved to be a good and beautiful wife, and she fitted into his lifestyle. And they had a relatively normal life. And then one day, he finds her standing before the fridge and throwing away all those meat and all the non-veg food that was stored in the fridge. And he asks her why she's doing like that. So she says that I had a dream. And like a typical husband, he does not listen to her. And he does not try to understand what type of a dream she had. But she only narrates that she had a dream. And then all of a sudden, she stops eating all the meat products or all the non-veg products which are there. He tries to rationalize the decision of his wife. And from that day, only vegetarian meals are prepared. And Yon Hai prepares only those things which are vegetarian in nature and serves those to her husband. Now, here, Yon Hai's family, her parents, her father, her mother, They try to intervene in between, but Yonhai does not yield to any of those pressures which are there. And she refuses to have the non-veg food. And at that time, when she's forced, she slits her wrist. And then blood started oozing out, and she's rushed to the hospital. And she doesn't know what has happened, because in that fit, she slits her wrist. And Yonhai uh, is not aware of what is going on. Her husband, Mr. Chong, says that she has become mentally unstable. And she wants to know that has she done something wrong? So this is the first section of the vegetarian. Now there are certain scenes which are there, which are very, very important to understand the novel. I wish I could have taught you line by line, because it is a very interesting and arresting novel. Anyway, now Mr. Chong says that before his wife became vegetarian, he felt that she did not have anything remarkable in her. She was short with bobbed hair, sickly looking skin. She had been promptly. And he says that I do not know of life. So I wanted to have as my wife, who was very timid and who had no demands. And those who are pretty or intellectual, he feels would have never served him, and his order of existence would have been questioned. So he's happy that she was there with him as his wife. Looking after him, things, what an ordinary wife is supposed to be. Now, the duty that she performed was every morning she used to get up at 6, prepare rice and soup for him, sometimes fish also. And she also contributed to the family income. She took up a job at computer graphics in college, and she used to work also. And as regards her nature was concerned, she was a woman of few words. She never demanded anything from him. And so he was very happy as a husband that there were no demands from a wife. And she was not even fussy. And whenever she suggested that they should go out, and if he said that he then she would shut up in herself in the room, and she would spend her time reading. And that was the only hobby she had. And she used to read and read and read. And he did not understand what she used to read so much. Only meal times, she would open the door and emerge to prepare the food. And like a dutiful wife, all the there's no phone for her also. And on the other wives of his friends, who were constantly on the phone, and there were calls from the friends and co-workers, and there were periodical nagging, screaming with their husbands on the phone calls. But he was grateful that Han Can never did all these things. Yon Hai never did all these things. Now, with this particular background, you can say that how smooth married life they had. And he said that my married life was nearly 5 years, Ma. And since we were never madly in love with each other, but we were going on very smoothly with our married life. Until one day in February, at midnight, what he saw was something very stunning, was something very, you can say, beyond his imagination. He saw her. He saw her standing in front of the fridge, and her face was submerged in the darkness, and he didn't know what she was doing. It was extremely cold, and she was wearing a thin nightwear. And he asked her, "Why are you standing like this? What is going on?" But she didn't even realize the presence of her husband, and she simply ignored him. It was uh, as if his presence did not matter much. And then he asked her, so she just murmured, "I had, is this the time to discuss about your dream?" And then she went to the bed and she cuddled herself and she went off to sleep also. Next morning, when he came up, he saw her with disheveled, tangled hair and shapeless mass of her face. And again, he saw her throwing away all the meat that was there in the fridge. He didn't know what she's doing, but he tried to ask her, "What is it?" Again, she said, "I had a dream." Now, this was something which made him lose his uh, patience also. And he just took a bath and got ready for his shaved and got ready for the office, and he saw that even iron. So this was all the thing that she was looking after in their married life, without handing anything to him like his kerchief and all that, wallet, kerchief, socks, everything. He had to do it himself after a gap of 5 years, because 5 years she was looking after all these things. He said that she has become insane, completely lost, and he went away. And she repeatedly said that I had a dream. I've already said what type of dream she had. She saw blood, she saw slaughtered animals. And all this disturbed her actually. Then in the evening on the dining table, there was plain soya bean, and you can see vegetarian soup, nothing of the sort which was non-vegetarian. Now, when he came there to eat, he asked Dad, "Why didn't you make some eggs? I'm really tired today. I didn't even have proper lunch." So she said that I have thrown away the eggs also. Meat and everything has been thrown, but even eggs are not there in the fridge now. He says, "It's unbelievable. You do not want to eat." She says that, "No, I don't want anything. I don't want to drink milk also. I've stopped drinking milk as well, because that comes from, again, an animal." Now he feels that how can she be so self-centered? And he says that if you're going to cook like this and if you're going to give me like this, I will die. And in one meal only, I think I will die. But she declares that I will never cook meat and there will be never meat or non-veg in this house. So he asks, "Okay, until when? For how many days this resolution of yours will be there?" She says, "I suppose forever. Henceforth, there won't be anything in the house as non-veg." Now he doesn't know how to react, what to do. And day by day, eating this vegetarian food, she becomes bony, she becomes thinner day by day. Her cheekbones become very prominent, and without makeup, even her complexion resembled that of a hospital patient. And if a woman who had given up meat to lose weight, he said that there was no need to worry. But she did not needed that. And he said there was nothing doing now, no more case of vegetarianism now. And one more thing that happened, we have seen that she was a voracious reader, but she stops reading now. And she doesn't read, she doesn't chat on the internet, she does not watch TV. Only thing was that she is living by herself. She has become completely silent. She has become, she has actually gone into her own cocoon. And all these things which are there, they really disturb him a lot. Then he found it difficult that she did not wanted to maintain any physical relationship also with him. And she distances from her husband in physical relationships also. Now, one day, what happens that he takes her to her boss's party. There is a party thrown by the boss. And he feels as if there would be some change for her, because the other colleagues of him, they were coming for the party with their wives. So she also goes there. And when the meat is served over there, she says that I don't eat. And she merely sat there looking at the food, which was very, very, you can say, embarrassing for him. And all the guests who were there, they looked at her, gave glances of surprise, and they looked at her body, which had become so slender, weak, as if like a patient. One of them, they asked also that, are you those vegetarians? Are you? Some people in other countries are strict vegetarians. This is about our country also, we can say. So they feel that there are some countries in which people are strict vegetarians and they don't eat anything. I feel that people give up meat, but they take up some other non-vegetarian food. And I suppose giving up meat in order to live a long life, isn't it all unreasonable? That is what the boss asked. But the wife said, but surely it isn't possible to live without eating meat. We can live without eating meat. Now, all these things embarrass him and he is very angry with her. Now, she only has fruits for her dessert, only a slice of apple or single orange segment. All these things are going on and on. Then one day, he takes her to her parents' house. And they also try to actually make her understand that how healthy food is the requirement for her body. And whatever she is doing, so they try to cook meat, they try to cook all the non-vegetarian dishes which she has. And they always ask her, what would you have? But she always says that I had a dream. Then her father-in-law also calls her that you should have all these things. But she says that I cannot have non-vegetarian food. Now, they also arrange for a family get-together on the second Sunday of June. And all get ready. And they meet over there. And at that particular family get-together, the family is there together. And a lot of non-vegetarian food is cooked. And she is persuaded to have those things. But she does not eat. And her mother-in-law also brings some beef, which is there. And they try to feed her with that. They try to give the food forcibly to her. They actually push it into her mouth. But she throws it away. There are small children over there in the family. And looking at Yon Hai, they get frightened. And all of a sudden, she picks up the knife and she says that if you force me to eat non-vegetarian food, I will kill myself. And in that, she slits her wrist, blood starts oozing, and all are scared as to what has happened. All had tried to persuade her to eat the non-veg food, but nobody is successful in that. And as the blood gushes out, everybody is frightened. They call for the ambulance and she is shifted into the hospital. But she stays firm on her, you can say, her decision of remaining vegetarian. So this is the first section of the novel, The Vegetarian. Now, in the second section, the Mongolian Mark, actually, it is a very descriptive, you can say, chapters, all the three sections which are there. But because of the shortage of time and all these things, I'm just summarizing it. But these novels, the broken verses and this particular novel is available in a library. And I wish you can read that. It is very simple English. You can understand that. You can issue the book and you can read. Even ebooks are available for that. So if you read the original text, you can get the essence. So I think you should read, because vegetarian is in very simple English. You can understand it. Now, what is actually the Mongolian Mark? Now, husband of Yon Hai's sister, he is a video artist. And he imagines as an artist a lovemaking scene between two people with their bodies decorated by painted flowers. And he is in search of a model who has a birthmark of a flower petal. And as an artist, he's in search of that because he wanted to paint the bodies of a male and female with decorative flowers. And he wanted to depict a lovemaking scene. Now, he came to know that his sister-in-law, Yon Hai, has that birthmark. And he plans to paint and record her in order to bring the artistic image of life. It is revealed that during this particular act, he's attracted towards her. And in that particular, you can say that particular act of his, he also serves a divorce notice to his wife, that is Yon Hai's sister. Now, Yon Hai agrees to model for him, and he paints flowers across the body in a studio which is rented from an art professor in the area. Now, Yon Hai has nothing to do with this world. She has been away from this world. In other words, you can say she has become a sannyasi who does not have any bonds, neither of love, neither of hatred, neither of any other sentiment or feeling that is there. So when her brother-in-law paints on her naked body, she does not have any shame or something like that. But she takes it as a project, and she takes up that she is a model and she poses as a model there. He follows up this project with the second piece of art, which involves recruiting another fellow artist who joins Yon Hai. And the brother-in-law asks her if they can have a physical relationship. Now, his friend, he is ashamed and he leaves. Yon Hai also does not agree to that, and she also leaves. The brother-in-law asks a friend to paint flowers on him and visits Yon Hai when they engage in some physical relationship. When his wife discovers this particular film, she calls emergency services that both her husband and her sister are mentally unstable. They are unwell. And he tries to jump off the balcony, most likely to end his life, but he remains rooted to the spot and he's escorted by the authorities. So this is the second section, the Mongolian Mark. The Mongolian Mark, as the title suggests, is the birthmark that is there on the body of Yon Hai. Now, these two sections, the first section in which the narrator is the husband of Yon Hai. In second, the narrator is the brother-in-law of Yon Hai. And in third, it is the sister of Yon Hai who narrates in the third section, that is the flaming trees. Now, Yon Hai has to undergo a lot of suffering because of all these things. Because this act of vegetarianism is not acceptable to the society, to her relatives, to her husband, or to anyone who are there in that particular, because they are society, because they are brought up in that particular manner. Their eating pattern, their way to the food habits is different. So this is something which was not accepted or not seen by them. Therefore, she has to undergo a lot of resistance. Yonhai remains the only, Inhai. Inhai is the sister of Yonhai. She supports Yonhai after her mental and physical decline. Because even physically she declines. She does not get proper nourishment. As we have seen that she only eats a slice of apple or a slice of orange. So only one segment of orange we can say. So it is only her sister who stays with her and who looks after her in her mental and physical decline.